Beautiful city of Honolulu, Oahu, Hawaii. My name is Jong-woo Han. I am the president of Korean War Legacy Foundation, which has more than 1,500 interviews of Korean War veterans, not only from the United States, but also from other 21 countries that participated in the Korean War. We are doing this to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the breakout of the Korean War occurred in 1950. Specially commissioned by the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs of Republic of Korea. We are doing this to preserve your memory, first of all, because it's been a long time ago already, more than 70 years ago, and we want to honor your service as a Korean War veteran. But at the same time, we want to make this interview into curricular resources for the history teachers so that they can use this interview when they talk about the Korean War in their classroom for their own students. I met you over the lunch introduced by Mr. Tomi Tahara. I want to thank all the arrangement for the interviews in Hawaii.
Yes.
And thank you coming for this interview to share your story with me. Please introduce yourself. What is your name, sir?
My name is Bob. The nickname is Bob Imose. I-M-O-S-E.
So that's a Japanese name.
My middle Japanese name is Mitsuo. M-I-T-S-U-O.
S-U-O, Mitsuo.
Yes, Mitsuo.
Okay. And what is your birthday?
My birthday is March 26, 1931. That makes me a little over 90 years old.
90 years old. You two of you must look very healthy and young.
Yes.
Yeah. Where were you born?
Born in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Honolulu.
Yes.
Right here.
Yes.
And tell me about your family when you were growing up. Your parents, what did they do? And your siblings, brothers and sisters?
Well, I have two brothers, older than me. I had four sisters. I'm the youngest of seven. We were raised in the River Street area near Nuanu Stream, which is the middle of Honolulu, near Chinatown.
Uh-huh.
Went to school at Ka'uluwela School in Honolulu.
What school?
Ka'uluwela. K-A-U. Ka'uluwela. K-A-U-L-U-W-E-L-A.
Kauluela High School.
No, elementary school.
Elementary.
Central Intermediate School. And Farrington High School. Farrington High School.
Could you spell it?
F-A-R-R-I-N-G.
F-A?
R-R-I-N-G-T-O-N. It's named after one of the governors in Hawaii, Wallace Ryder Farrington.
And when did you graduate?
1949.
49. And in the school, when you were in high school, did you learn anything about Korea?
I had taken courses for pre-college courses, so we had a lot of geography, English, math, and so forth. So after high school, I went to university.
But when you were in high school, did you learn anything about Korea?
Not very much, but right away it was, because we're taking geography. And,
I see.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We knew that in high school after the war, Korea was dominated by Japan for quite a few years. That's why it was some of the subjects in school when we were there.
And so, what happened? When did you join the army? Were you drafted or you enlisted?
I enlisted in the Air Force.
When?
1951.
And where did you get the basic military?
Beg your pardon?
Where did you get the basic military training?
They sent me to Lackland Air Force Base in Texas.
Uh-huh.
Then I went to tech school in Washington, Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. Then I got assigned duty in Long Beach, California. I was trained as an electronic technician from the Air Force. Then I was fortunate enough to be selected to go to pilot training. So I took 15 months of pilot training from the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And I graduated in 1954, got sent to Korea. Sent to Okinawa. That was our first duty station.
So how was that training, the pilot training? What kind of plane did you train and how was it?
Well, I never had any experience in flying before, so it was a very strange and rewarding career, I thought. But it's like riding a bicycle. You have a hard time in the beginning, but once you get used to it, it's okay.
So what was your rank and after you graduate?
When you graduate, you commission as a second lieutenant.
Second lieutenant?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And what was your unit?
My unit in Okinawa was 5th Air Force, a sub-outfit of the 5th Air Force.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of airplane did you?
I was flying B-29s.
B-29.
Yes.
So tell me about the B-29 to the young students. What kind of aircraft was it?
It was originally built by Boeing about 1942, but it really saw action during the Japanese theater war. And it was the primary airplane that bombarded the Japanese mainland.
Mm. So it was a bomber, right?
It was a bomber.
Yeah, and how many pilots were there? How many navigator and gunners?
There were 2 pilots. It's a 4-engine airplane. 2 pilots, 1 navigator, 1 engineer, 3 gunners, you want to call it. Depending on the mission, how many people they take. Sometimes there's a radar operator. Sometimes there's just a basic crew, probably about 7.
So what kind of bomb did you carry and drop?
Well, we were in a special outfit that primarily using propaganda materials, bottles and stuff like that. So we were a special mission outfit.
So you didn't really drop the bomb, but propaganda material?
Yes.
Uh-huh. So what kind of material was that?
We know it's propaganda material, but we really didn't know. It came in packages, so we just dropped it. It was in whatever language it was.
Uh-huh.
They even prepared some in Chinese back then, and some in Korean, depending on where the situation was.
So when you arrived in Okinawa, it was already the war ended.
The war ended.
But what kind of operation did you do? Why did you still have to drop the propaganda materials?
Well, we didn't really drop anything at that time, but they were preparing, expecting a war.
I see.
So everything was in preparation at that time. It was the Iron Curtain days.
Uh-huh.
So
then what was your main duty every day? What did you do there in Okinawa?
Well, like I said, preparing intelligence briefing and things like that.
Uh-huh. Did you fly too?
Yeah, we fly to keep our training up.
Uh-huh.
So the one mission we had to Korea back in '54 was we flew from Okinawa to the west side at low level, penetrate the air defense ID zone, then turn around to see if we alerted any Korean forces, North Korean forces. So
North Korean, okay.
Yeah. So we went up to North Korea, turn around to see if we alerted somebody to come up.
What happened? Did you alert them?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We just flew the mission. Whoever on the ground watching and listening are the ones that's what we flew the mission for the intelligence.
Were you scared?
Going to combat, you're a little nervous.
How up high in the sky?
Well, we started very low, and we pulled up to 5,000 feet, then climbed up to 30,000.
Uh-huh.
Depends on what the mission calls for.
So, how was North Korean Air Force at the time in 1954?
Well, they were supposed to have a lot of MiG-15s at that time, but we're not sure. We was kind of like Amish this time, but they just wanted to check their air defense, so that's what one of the missions was.
And so then you didn't encounter any North Korean enemies?
No.
Uh-huh. And when did you leave Okinawa then?
I left after 2.5 years, 1957.
57.
Yeah.
And during that time, have you been to Korea?
No,
Not at all.
not at all.
Not at all.
I began my Korean experience in 1967.
Tell me about it. How? What?
I got stationed in Japan.
You were still at the Air Force.
I was still in the Air Force. By this time, I became a communication electronics officer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on the staff of 5th Air Force, which had command over Korea too.
What kind of mission?
Well, my primary mission was to make sure communication was always on. We had to work with not only JESDAF in Japan, but also with ROCAF in Korea. So we worked with 8th Army at that time, which controlled Korea for all the landline communication, teletype information, telephone, all the communication that we're involved with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I visited most of the Korean bases that we had.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So Daegu?
Daegu, let's see. We went to Osan, Suwon, Gunsan, Kimpo, Gwangju, and Daegu was now by Busan, Daegu.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the bases that I visited.
So that was 67.
67 to 71.
So you saw major cities of Korea at the time. How was it?
It was, in my opinion, it was kind of like country.
Not city.
Not city. Seoul was a little bit better, but I would say it was like our town in Hawaii, Waipahu, Waihewa, Kailua, they had some 3-4-story buildings, but not too many high-rises.
Uh-huh.
So, but at that time, they had a curfew.
Right.
So I didn't get to see too much. All my dealings with the Korean Air Force were during the daytime. Nighttime, 10 o'clock, everything's off. You have to be on base.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time was spent on base.
Base. What was your rank at the time?
When the time I got to Korea, I was a major.
Major?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, you were married at the time?
Yes.
Yes. And your family were in
Japan.
So since then, have you been back to Korea?
Yes.
When?
2018, twice. 2018 and 2019. What a fabulous.
Tell me about it. How it's been changed? Mr. Imose, you are the only one who saw Korea in 67 to 71, and you can compare that with the Korea that you saw in 2018 and 19. Tell me, detail.
Well, when I was in Korea, when we went to Seoul, it was just like going into the regular town with no high-rise. Maybe the highest building was 3 or 4 stories, a lot of shops, building, and there was only one high-rise, which was 20 stories, and there was a hotel. The reason I know it's a hotel is because we stayed there while we had a conference in Korea with the ROCAF.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went back in 2018, I couldn't believe it. It was like being in New York or San Francisco, even Los Angeles, with all the high-rises. Beautiful condominiums all over the place. It's amazing. It's really amazing. It was, I think, 10 times bigger than Honolulu.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion anyway. And the most surprising thing for me was the amount of bridges there was over the Han River. When I was there during 67 to 71, if we landed in Kimpo, we had to go all the way down south to get to that one bridge that crossed the Han River to get to Seoul. And it was right around Yeongdong-po, where the Rock Cafe headquarters was. And we went right across the bridge to Seoul, 8th Army. So that's the only bridge I remember. But when I went back this time, there were something like 32 new bridges in there. So that was one of the biggest things I couldn't believe it. Really amazing, amazing. Korea really, really got terrific growth. They're fantastic.
But yeah, go ahead.
And the other thing that really surprised me, they had traffic jams. And a lot of brand new cars.
Horrible.
A lot of Genesis. And a lot of European cars, Mercedes. I was really amazed. When I was there, they had little bicycles and what they call motorbikes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of bicycles in those days, but now all cars.
There are many Japanese cars too. Toyota and...
Yes. Well, I didn't see too many, but a lot of Korean cars, Hyundai, Kias, and Genesis was really what impresses me.
Yeah, all right. So when you left Korea in 71, did you ever imagine that Korea would become like this today?
No way.
Why not? You underestimate Korean people?
At that time, because I was in the Air Force, I knew Korea was kind of, industry-wise, they were just beginning. But I never thought they'd be accomplished so much in such a short time. Back in those days, I remember there were no peace treaty between Japan and Korea. They were still at odds at that time. No peace treaty. But I guess back about 70 some odd, they finally got diplomatic relationship. So they really blossomed, I think. Really fantastic.
So are you proud about that?
Say again?
Are you proud about that?
Oh, very proud. I'm very amazed more than anything else. I'm very proud, yeah.
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 That's why the Korean War has such a legacy, right? Such a legacy, beautiful outcome came out of your whole service. But Korean War has been known as forgotten war. People saying that when you got back from Korea, where have you been? They didn't know. They didn't know, and they didn't give much attention to it, and they never thought that Korea would become like this today.
But the Korean people never forgot. There was a little girl with her mother that came up to us when we were there in 2018. They gave us a flower. They said, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe it, a little girl.
Mm.
She said, thank you very much. And my mother was right there with her. But they never forgot.
So this Hawaii chapters, the 5th, 25th Division, 24th Division were here, and many of them from Hawaii went into with the 7th Division, right? And they were in the very early beginning of the Korean War. So the Hawaii veterans are the one who really shed the blood and served with the honor in the Korean War. So that's why my foundation has a lot of interviews from Korean War veterans in Honolulu, and I just came from Hilo and Kona and Maui so that we can add more interviews. And next time I want to go to other islands and I want to preserve their memory before it gets too late. So I want to thank again Mr. Tahara for arranging this wonderful interview. He is the one who treated us lunch. I want to thank him. But is there any other story or any other message that you want to say to the Korean people?
Well, you met my son.
Daryl.
Yes, he went with me. and he wants to go back again. He really enjoyed it. He thinks Korea is one of the best places he ever been to. So, we love Korea now. Really, really terrific. The people are so generous, so nice, so pleasant.
This is very good because we are neighbors. The Koreans and Japanese are neighbors. If they live peace together and live harmoniously, these two countries can be really strong. Think about it. Japan is number 3 or 4 in the world. Korea is number 10. China is number 1. But they are fighting against each other. That's a very bad. It's very bad. It's stupid, actually.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so that's why my foundation is trying to work with the teachers and students. Mr. Imose, I want to thank you for your service as a Korean War veteran, even though you were there in 1954. By the definition of U.S. federal government, Korean War veterans from June 25th of 1950 to January 31st of 1955. So you belong to that group, and you did your service as an Air Force officer, and then you did working on the communication, electronics with all the Air Force bases in Korea, Daegu, Suwon, Gimpo. That's where my father served.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, my father was a Phantom, F-86, Phantom F-5A. He's the first one who did air show with the F-5A.
Wow.
Black Eagle. So I know all about this, and you made such contributions. So you should be proud of yourself.
Well, I'm glad I got to know Korea again. So I want to thank the Korean people for taking very good care of us when we were there.
Oh, that's obvious.
Yeah.
But again, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Imose, for your service.
Thank you.
Okay.